Hello, my name is Felix, and we are here today to do a presentation on the Adirondack Land Connectivity and Ecosystem Service Project, also known as the ALCES project. So, rural private landowners in the Adirondacks are facing increasing pressures to develop on or degrade land that has a lot of ecological value. They are encouraged to do this because they have extremely high property taxes and they have a limited job market. This makes commercial development and residential subdivisions an appealing way to pay for property taxes. The goal of the ALCES project is to provide alternative income sources that involve minimal development and destruction of land, or none at all. The ALCES project intends to do this by providing the tools and support necessary to private landowners, civil society groups, and management agencies. This will increase the application and understanding of traditional and emerging ecosystem service markets and regulatory mechanisms, and will further incentivize conservation practices on private lands. So this is our agenda for today. We looked at a variety of possible income sources, but the ones that we listed were the ones that we felt were the most worthwhile and viable. First, Melinda will talk to us about our two pilot sites, ALCES and Warren County. She will also be talking about our recommendations and conclusions later. Then Daniel will talk to us about carbon markets and renewable energy products. Carissa will talk about certified forest and farm products. Ashley will talk about conservation banking. Harris will talk about recreation in Adirondacks, and Nicole will talk about conservation easements and tax incentives.
Right, so that brings us to our pilot sites. And the first
Louder.
Okay, so this brings us to our pilot sites. The first one is Osaba, which is a town in the county of Clinton that's outlined in the red in the north. And the second one is Warren County, which is outlined in the green in the south. The first pilot site, Osaba, is this red outlined little town, and I highlighted in yellow the low intensity use land classification. The reason I did this is because low intensity use land classification means that you are allowed to do low intensity development, and for getting permits for that isn't that difficult. So what I thought was that biomass would be a really great opportunity here. Osaba actually already has a biomass project there, and it's called the Osaba Valley Central School District Biomass Heat and Energy Project. And there's also Reenergy, which has a series of biomass plants in the Adirondacks. Our second pilot site, Warren County, is outlined here in the green, and I've highlighted the rural use category. And what rural use means is that in order to do any development here, it has to produce, or it has to preserve the rural character of the land. So here, we thought that microhydro would be a really great opportunity for landowners, because as you can see, two rivers sort of bisect this county, and a lot of little streams are going to come off of that. And so microhydro would be a really easy way to integrate renewable energy into your land use. There's also a great potential for wind energy, as the Adirondack Wind Energy Project has already gone forward in this area. And now Daniel is going to talk to us about conservation through carbon markets.
Right, so one option we looked at with funding conservation in the Adirondacks was carbon markets. There's two laws in the U.S. that govern carbon emissions. The Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, which governs some northeastern states, including New York, and the California Cap and Trade Law. Both laws cap CO2 emissions at a certain level and allow businesses that don't meet that cap to buy credits on a carbon market. Both systems allow for a small amount of the cap to be met through carbon offsets, or the reduction of carbon emissions in one area to compensate for emissions elsewhere. One way this can be achieved is through a conservation easement, where landowners agree to restore or protect a parcel of forest land in exchange for payment or tax benefits. The idea is that by protecting a forest, either from logging or development, you're preserving its natural carbon storage function. One case study, the Farm Grove Community Forest Project, located in Maine, was already funded through the California law. Another possibility for the Adirondacks is renewable energy. Renewable energy in the Adirondacks is appealing because the park is remote and energy has to be imported at a high cost, often in the form of compressed natural gas, kerosene, and gasoline. Renewables would lower energy costs and help New York meet its statewide renewable energy standard of 30% by 2015. Three options that we looked at for renewable energy in the Adirondacks were microhydro, biomass, and wind power. Microhydro consists of small dam pools or waterfalls that run a turbine. It has relatively low startup costs, and there's already a New York State Senate bill that mandates that utilities purchase back hydropower, excess hydropower produced by landowners when possible. Biomass would be great for the Adirondacks because there's a huge timber industry in the Adirondacks. We looked at plants that gasify wood chips and use them for power generation or heating. As Melinda mentioned, there's already a planned Adirondack wind energy project in Warren County. The advantage of this is that it would take place on private land and have minimal effect on the forest. Finally, some of the business partners that we looked at are ReEnergy, which is an existing wood chip biomass energy plant operator in the Adirondacks. Finite Carbon, which is a consulting firm that specializes in monetizing and marketing carbon offsets and acts as an intermediary between the landowner and the market. And Brownell Microhydro, which is an existing microhydro company in the Adirondacks. Next, Carissa will talk to us about certified forest and farm products.
There's fantastic potential in the Adirondacks for the development of certified farm forest product markets. These markets would allow private forest and landholders to consult with a third-party certification body in order to develop and implement a sustainable use or management plan. These plans certify that the use of the land is in accordance with the certification body's sustainability principles, and contingent on the certification, market and economic benefits can accrue to the landholders. In order to develop these markets in the Adirondacks, the expansion of the organic harvest organization model should be expanded. This looks at specialty non-timber and farm product production, and the aim of this market development is a high-end and low-impact market. In order for this market to come about in the Adirondacks, greater information needs to be disseminated to private landholders regarding the availability of federal and state grant opportunities, including the Regional Development Block Grant, which currently provides some funding to the Adirondack Harvest Organization, as well as financial assistance programs for the accreditation process, including federal government cost-sharing mechanisms and tax incentives that allow landholders to receive these by putting their lands in a sustainable use plan, which Nicole will discuss further. Ashley will tell you about conservation banking and biodiversity banking.
Okay. The Adirondacks has great potential for conservation banking. Conservation banks are permanently protected lands that contain natural resource values. These lands are conserved and permanently managed for species that are endangered, threatened, or species at risk. Conservation banks function to offset adverse impacts to these species that occur elsewhere, sometimes referred to as off-site mitigation. That's a map of the states that have conservation banks, and New York is currently in the very early stages of creating a conservation bank. How does it work? The values of the natural resources are translated into quantified credits. Typically, the credit price will include funding for long-term natural resource management and protection of those values. Project proponents are therefore able to complete their conservation needs through a one-time purchase of credits from the conservation bank. A bank can be created in a number of different ways. One, acquisition of existing habitat, protection of existing habitat through conservation easements, restoration or enhancements of disturbed habitat, creation of new habitat in some situations, and prescriptive management of habitats for specified biological characteristics. Banks can be created in association with specific projects or can proceed from a circumstance where a project proponent sets aside more area than is needed for the immediate project, or where this specific project and is willing to protect the remaining area and thus generate credits, or where the specific project is implemented over a long period of time. Conservation banks allow one-stop shopping for the project proponent, providing conservation and management for listed species in one simplified transaction. There are over 4,000 mammals that inhabit the world. 53 species are found in the Adirondacks. Conservation banking has potential in Adirondacks because it can create incentives for landowners to protect or purchase credits. Landowners can profit from selling habitat or species credits. They can generate income, keep large parcels of land intact, and possibly reduce taxes, and ultimately protecting the wildlife native to the Adirondacks. Next is Harris on recreation.
Recreation in the Adirondacks has unlimited potential. Natural wonders include 3,000 lakes and ponds, 30,000 miles of rivers and streams, 2,000 miles of hiking trails, the largest trail system in the United States, fantastic alpine skiing, rated top 10 whitewater rafting trip in the United States. You can find 50 plus species of mammals and 100 bird species. And most importantly, the 6.1 million acres of the Adirondacks is greater than the national parks of Yellowstone, Yosemite, Grand Canyon, Glacier, and the Great Smoky Mountains combined. Yet there's still a lot of underdeveloped land that can be converted for recreation. We think this is because a lot of people do not know about the Adirondacks, including New Yorkers. So working with the ARTC, the Adirondack Regional Tourism Council, who is in charge of the I Love New York campaign, appealing mostly to New Yorkers and local area residents, they must capitalize on the fact that the Adirondacks is a wilderness destination that's within a day's drive of 120 million visitors. Also working on things like education, what the Adirondacks is, what kind of recreation opportunities can be found here. Also promoting to all ages and economic backgrounds. The goal is to brand the Adirondacks in the same way as Yosemite and Grand Canyon. Why should landowners change and convert their lands into recreation? One word is profitable. In 2011, the Americans spent $646 billion on the outdoor recreation economy. Compare that with pharmaceuticals, $331 billion, or motor vehicles and parts, $340 billion, and almost as much as healthcare, $767 billion. Finally, the outdoor recreation economy has proved resilient. From 2005 to 2011, it grew 5% annually in a time during an economic recession where sectors like healthcare and real estate contracted. Now Nicole will talk about conservation easements.
So, as Dan Carissa mentioned before, conservation easements are legal agreements between a landowner and an organization who will stop in a land trust that limit uses of the land to protect its conservation values. Basically, the owner keeps title to the land and its rights, but surrenders the opportunity to have it subdivided and developed. In doing so, he protects open spaces, wildlife habitat, recreational land, landscapes, and sometimes provides public access. Conservation easements are an attractive option for private landowners because they result in tax reductions. The federal tax incentive for conservation easements qualifies a donor for a deduction of 50% of their adjusted gross income and allows qualifying farmers and ranchers to deduct up to 100% of their adjusted gross income. These deductions apply for the year of the donation along with the following 15 years afterwards. Furthermore, the New York State Conservation Easement Tax Credit gives New York State landowners whose land is restricted by a conservation easement an annual refund of 25% of the property taxes paid on that land, with a cap of $5,000 a year. Again, that's $5,000 that landowners can have back in their pockets. The conservation tax credit creates a huge incentive for conservation because it enables landowners with modest incomes to conserve their land without sacrificing financial security. One improvement that can be made to this system is that each easement have its own specific conservation management plan. This would include clear-cut goals of protecting the land and ensuring sustainability. Another suggestion is for a type of reverse mortgage system to be established. This would allow older people who own lots of land that they want to protect, but need money now to strike up a deal with the land trust to receive a certain amount of money annually with the condition that the land trust inherit that property. Another financial incentive for private landowners to conserve land is through transferable development rights. TDR programs enable landowners to be financially compensated for choosing not to develop some or all of their land. Landowners sever the development rights from their land and sell the rights to another landowner or real estate developer for use at another location. The land with the sold-off development rights is permanently protected through a conservation easement or other appropriate form of restricted agreement. These programs provide an economic incentive for landowners to help increase the protection of the Adirondack farm. And finally, I'll pass the rest of the presentation on to Melinda.
So our recommendations for further research are, one, policy-based research. How are we going to get these proposed ideas in place? Where do we go from here and where are our markets? Also, education. How do we get landowners interested in renewable energy? How do we let them know that this is even an option available to them? Also outreach, community organization, having campaigns to raise awareness of these options, and also to encourage conservation banks to open in New York. Our conclusions are basically that renewable energies seem to be the most viable and lowest impact income sources, and that there's plenty of growth potential in recreation. But there's a problem because we need to find a balance between recreational growth while minimizing environmental impact. Also, there are no conservation banks in New York right now because of lack of incentives. It would be ideal to have a statewide conservation banking program. We would like to especially thank our mentor, Professor Jim Tolosano, for his guidance throughout the semester, as well as the entire NYU Environmental Studies Department for providing us with a wonderful undergraduate experience.